Okay, guys, we're going to look at a flexible budgeting question from the year 2003. Flexible budgeting came up on its own in 99, 2003, 2006, and then it disappeared for a long time, but it has made an appearance in recent years again. So it's certainly one that we need to keep an eye on. This question is a basic question, but it will teach us the necessary skills to do the more difficult questions in the more recent years. Let's read the question from the top. It says, O'Reilly manufactures a component for the electronic industry. The following flexible budgets have already been prepared for 55%, 70%, and 80% of the plant's capacity. So therefore, the different columns here indicate if the company was to work at 55% of its capacity, it could produce 11,000 units. And if it was to work at 70%, it could produce 14,000 units, and 85% they would be able to produce 17,000 units. It's easy enough to extrapolate from that 100% capacity, the most this company can produce is 20,000 units. How you do that is you take any of those numbers, 17,000. If you divide it by 85 and multiply by 100, you'll be able to bring that right up to 20,000, and you'll see that that's your 100% capacity. Now, under each of those columns, they give you a list of 5 expenses: materials, wages, production overheads, other overheads, and administration expenses. Now, if you divide 11,000 into the 143, 143,000 for materials, for example, divided by 11,000, or 182 divided by 14,000, or indeed 221 divided by 17,000. In each situation, you're going to find that the direct materials are the same, that they are indeed €13 per unit. And you can do the same for wages. 11,000 into 99, or 14 into 126, or 17 into 153, and in each situation there, the direct wages are €9 per unit. It's not as simple with production overheads and other overheads because they are mixed costs. I'm going to explain that in part 2 and 3 of the question. But administration expenses, you can see that those are 29,000 across the board. That means it's a fixed expense, regardless of the production level. It's always going to be 29,000. So, therefore, when we go in here, part 1 of the question just asks to classify the above costs into fixed, variable, or mixed. Well, I've just told you that the materials are variable. In fact, we could even say that they're €13 per unit, because the more units you produce, the more materials it will take. And wages are variable. And we've just learned that they are €9 per unit. Again, the more units you produce, the more wages you'll need to pay. Now I'm going to skip down to the 5th one here, and I'm going to say that the administration expenses are fixed. They're always 29,000. There will be no change on that. But these other two are what we call, the production overheads are what we call a mixed cost and a mixed cost. How do we know this? Well, because part 2 of the question tells us. In fact, let's read part 2 of the question now, part 2 and 3. It says, separate the production overheads into its fixed and variable elements. And part 3 says, separate the other overheads into their fixed and variable elements. So therefore, they are a mixture of a fixed portion and a variable per unit portion. So part 2 of the question now is asking us to calculate the fixed and variable part of production overheads. And we do this by doing something called a high-low method. And I've got high and low written here. You guys can pause the video at this stage and draw out some boxes like this, feel free. So we look at the high level of units in the question, and we can see that across the three capacities, the highest level of units is 17,000, and the lowest level of units is 11,000. So therefore, the difference there is 6,000 units. Now, as regards to production overheads, the highest production overhead is 110, and the lowest production overhead across the three capacities is 74. The difference there is 36,000 euro. So, therefore, I'm going to fill out this sentence now. Variable costs of 6,000 units is 36,000 euro. Therefore, the variable cost, if you divide that into that, the 6 into the 36, variable cost is 6 euro per unit. And that's the answer to the variable part of production overheads. In fact, we can prove that that's correct by doing this little proof down here. At each level, 55, 70, and 85%, we have 11,000, 14,000, 17,000 units. Now the total production overheads given in the questions here are 74. I'm just taking what's in the question, 92 and 110. Now if we are saying that the variable part of this is 6 euro per unit, well, 6 by 11 is 66. 6 by 14 is 84. And 6 by 17,000 is 102. Now look what happens to fixed. In each case, we can now say that the fixed production is 8,000 euro. So therefore, we can safely say that the variable is, highlight this first, 6 euro per unit, and the fixed is 8,000 in production overheads. Part 3 of the question asks us to do the exact same thing again. I'm going to do this one more time, maybe perhaps a little bit faster this time. Other overheads, again, the highest units is 17,000 and the lowest is 11, leaving us with units of 6,000. Now, the highest cost, 34, and the lowest cost, 36, leaving us with 18,000 of a variable, or change a little bit. The variable cost of 6,000 units is 18,000 euro. So therefore here the variable cost is 3 euro per unit. Let's be consistent with our color coding. I'm going to make that red again. And then we're going to try to work out here what is the fixed cost. Well, the totals straight from the question are 36, 45, and 54. Now here we now know that this is supposed to be, the variable part is, we think, 3 euro per unit. So let's test this theory. If it's right, this should be the same across the board. 3 by 11 is 33. 3 by 14 is 42. 3 by 17 is 51. In each case, then, the fixed overhead is 3,000, 3,000, 3,000, almost 3,000. That is splitting the production overheads and the other overheads into their fixed and variable elements, red and yellow. Now we're going to look at part 4 of the question. Part 4 of the question asks us to prepare a flexible budget for 96% activity, not 100%, which we know is 20,000 units. Instead, you take any of the given units, so you take your 17,000, and if you divide by 85 and multiply by 96, divide by 85 to get 1%, multiply by 96 to get 96%, you will come up with your 19,200 units. Now, what do we have to do here? Well, 19,000, we're going to do, this is literally reproducing what is in the question. Do you see those 5 expenses? That's what the question gave you. So we say the direct materials, it is now 19,200 by 13, which we know the direct materials were per unit from looking at the question at the beginning, gives you 249,600. And direct wages are 19,200 by 9, which we got at the start, gives you this. Now these production overheads, that's where we have to use the information from part 2 of the question. We know that the production overheads are as follows. They've got a variable part of €6 per unit, so therefore we go €6 by 19,200 gives you this 115,200, and we know that they've got a fixed part of 8,000. And we add together the 2 bits, and that will give you that 123,200, which we put in here. That is our production overheads. Our other overheads, we do it in the same way. We're just expanding up what we know to 19,200 units. So therefore it's 19,200 by €3 gives you 57,600. And then it is, I'm going to bring that back in line slightly. And then it is a fixed part of 3,000, and you add the 2 of these together to get 60,600, and you place this back in here, 60,600. Other overhead. And then, of course, very simply, our administration expenses are always 29,000. You add up all 5 bits to get 635,200. That's your total cost. The question does, at the very end of the question, it does tell you that the profit is supposed to be 22% of sales. So therefore, if the profit is 22%, well, then the cost is going to be the other 78%. Sales less cost is equal to 22%. Well, then that cost must be 78%. So that's why I have this written up here, 78% of sales, because we're going to use that in part 5, the final part of the question. So in part 5 of the question, it asks you to restate the budget using marginal costing principles and show the contribution. Well, marginal costing is a topic that 5th years will not have hit yet, 6th years will, but what is important here is that you have to separate out your variable costs and your fixed costs, and you have a contribution figure in between. So therefore, we're going to take this information, but we are going to just separate it into fixed and variable parts. So therefore, the direct materials, we can already see the direct materials are entirely variable, €13 per unit. So therefore, it's safe to put in this 249,600 in its entirety. The direct wages are entirely variable. That's 172,800. Both of these numbers, again, just to reiterate, coming from here. But we can't put in this production overhead as an entirely variable part because it is a mixture of the two. So let's go back over here to remind ourselves that it is, it's going to go up one. There is a variable part of 115,200 and a fixed part of 8,000. So therefore the variable part is 115,200. 115,200. And I'm just going to go to the right of the screen again here to find the variable part of other overheads. The variable part of other overheads is 57,600. The fixed part is 3,000. 57,600. So therefore we go back in here and we'll get our 5,700. And these are all variable costs, totaling up to 595,200. Let's do the fixed cost for a moment. The fixed cost production overheads we can get from part 2 or part 4 of the question. We know it was 8,000. We know that the fixed part of the other overheads from part 3 or part 4 of the question was 3,000. And we know that administration expenses are always 29,000. Now, here this is interesting. These two numbers combined, 595 and 40. 595,200 and 40,000. Those are the total expenses, which if you add them together are 635,200. This is equal to 78% because the costs are 78% of the sales. So that is 78% of the number we're looking for sales. So if you divide by 78 and multiply by 100, so divide by 70, 78, 635, 200, divided by 78 to get 1%, multiply by 100 to get 100%. That's going to give you, on your calculators, I'll make that visible for you. That's going to give you this sales number, which is sales, I'm going to put in here 100%. And that figure, when you do that on your calculators, is 814,359. That then allows you to go sales minus variable cost gives you contribution. We'll do more on this when we do marginal costing. And then you take your contribution and you take away fixed cost. And when you do that, take away your fixed cost, you get your profit, which is 179,159. This is also 22% of the sales number up here, as the question instructed it to be. There is a little bit of theory there as well. There's the answer to the theory. I'll leave that on the screen for a moment. Thank you very much for listening. You can practice your next flexible budgeting question from now on. Thank you.